G'day and welcome to another episode of Kiwi Car Life. And the FK8 Civic Type R was the hot hatchback that put Honda back on the map when it came to performance cars. They were well known for their high revving VTEC engines back in the 90s and 2000s, but at the end of the FD2 and FN2 Civic Type R, all of that went away for the best part of 5 years. And they brought it back, at least for the rest of the world, with the FK8. And it was an immensely popular car. They sold the best part of 40,000 of them, and there's plenty of them around in New Zealand today. However, it wasn't a perfect car. It had 20-inch rims, which meant it had unbelievably expensive tyres. The infotainment system, after a few years, started to sort of show its age, and the styling was polarizing, to say the least. So, in 2023, Honda gave us a brand new FL5 Civic Type R. And today, I'm going to be comparing these two cars to see what differs and what's similar, and at the end, tell you which one I think you should buy. In terms of exterior styling, the people I've talked to regarding these two cars have often said they love the drive of the FK8 but couldn't get over the styling. But then I've also talked to a lot of people who've looked at the FL5 and said that they think that it looks a little bit boring. It still has all the same elements of the FK8. They're just sort of shrunk down a bit, a little less aggressive and a little bit less crazy, which I happen to quite like. The engines are both turbocharged 2-litre inline fours. It's in essence the same engine across the FK2, the FK8 and the FL5, although there are some very subtle differences. For instance, the FK8 makes 228 kilowatt, or around 306 horsepower and 400 newton meters, whereas this makes 7 more kilowatt, 235 kilowatt, and it makes 20 more newton meters of torque, 420 newton meters. But they're both 2-litre turbos. They've both got limited slip differentials going to the front wheels through a 6-speed manual transmission. It'll be interesting to see when we get them out on the road how these two very similar engines compare. I have to be honest, the FL5's interior is a massive improvement. The suede steering wheel feels and looks absolutely fantastic. I love the new full screen gauges that they have. The infotainment system is also a huge improvement. You now have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto rather than the wired type on the old car. And it's just a much nicer looking, more snappy infotainment system to use. The quality of all the switches and knobs on the inside is excellent. I love the way these climate control knobs feel. They just have that glorious tactile feel to them. And in my mind, the arrangement of everything is just that little bit easier to understand. Everything from the driver's seat is visible. It falls very easily to hand. It feels great to use, and it's so easy to understand what everything does. On the features front, they're actually quite similar. They both have auto lights and wipers. They're all LEDs at the front. They both have adaptive cruise control, lane keep assist, although on this new car it works a little better in my mind. The transmission feel is extremely similar. They both have a very light clutch pedal and a really nice feeling shift throw. The seats in the FL5 feel basically the same as the ones in the FK8, frankly, but maybe slightly more high quality feeling bolsters. In that car you can kind of feel the bar that runs along here, whereas in this one they've just done a slightly nicer job at designing the seats in my mind. But the boot space is very similar, the back seat room is very similar. So in terms of the layout and the overall level of features that you get in both cars, it's pretty similar, but this one definitely has better build quality and a much better infotainment system and gauge cluster setup. Now for the all-important drive. We'll take the new FL5 Civic Type R out first, because I know you guys are all keen to see what the new Civic Type R is like. And I've got to say, it's pretty similar. In many ways, see this as a major facelift rather than an all-new model. The ride is very similar when you have it in comfort mode, which is to say really rather good for a car with this level of performance. The transmission is just so slick to go through everything. Really nice, tight and direct steering, and even over these bumpy sort of average roads it's very comfortable, super quiet, lovely to drive, just like the FK8, but with just that little bit more refinement. Let's put it up into plus R mode and see what it does, eh? And as predicted, very much struggling to put down the power. You'll hear there that the new FL5 has some very distinctive fake engine noise, shall we say. Aside from that, even in frankly horrible conditions, this is a deeply impressive car. It handles so well. The new 265 wide tyres all around as opposed to the old 245 ones. You really notice it just sticks to the road, and while the straight line speed might not be, you know, back-braking, the handling is where this car just absolutely impresses you to no tomorrow. Steering feel is excellent. It weights up perfectly as you go through some of these more significant corners. It rev matches for you, which is really impressive. And on a road like this, or on a track day, I can absolutely see why this is up there as one of the fastest front-wheel drive cars in existence, because it is just unbelievable. But these FL5s are naturally significantly more expensive than the new FK8. So the age-old question, is it better than the FK8? Let's find out. The first thing I notice, which I actually prefer in this car, is the gear ratios. For cruising around at 50 k's an hour, fifth gear in this, for some reason, I don't know if the engine has a little bit more torque or if the gear ratio is in fact a little bit shorter, but it just seems more happy to sit in fifth gear, whereas the FL5 was kind of like really struggling in fifth. And the other thing that I like about this is the ride quality in the FL5 is pretty good, but this is even better. It's genuinely a comfortable car when you put it in comfort mode. But you put it into plus R mode, and then this is a fantastic fun car. Oh yeah. Still struggling for grip. And you can hear there it very much also has the fake noise. It definitely runs out of grip a little bit sooner. I can tell those 265s are really making a difference, especially in the wet. But it is still a really impressive car to drive over here. Most of the inputs feel very similar. The steering feel is equally excellent. The turbo is a little more aggressive to come in. It's not quite as smooth, so when it does come in, it's very kind of as it hits, but it's quick. It handles great. Oh, there we go. Now it's putting the power down in third gear. Oh, it's so tight and awesome to drive. The pros of the FK8 is that in comfort mode, it does ride a little bit better. The fake engine noise isn't quite as obnoxious, and the brakes in my mind are a little bit more punchy to come in. The FL5 has a much nicer interior, much nicer gauges, heaps better infotainment system. The engine is that little bit more refined. The turbo's not quite so sudden to come in. It comes on a little more smoothly. It's perhaps a little bit easier to control. It is quicker, and it definitely has a lot more grip, even in miserable conditions like this, just because of those wider tires. So I guess you're just going to have to decide whether you think a slightly more refined, slightly faster, slightly less crazy looking Type R is worth, you know, 20 or 30 odd grand more, or whether you're happy with one of these older FK8s, which are still unbelievably excellent cars. Man, these cars are just unbeatable. They are truly glorious. So there we go. FK8 versus FL5. Make your selection as to which one you would pick. Let me know down in the comments which one you prefer, and I will very much look forward to seeing you again next time.